Welcome to the Vibrant Living Network. Have you ever wondered what is possible beyond possible? What is the thing you've been wondering and inquiring about? Are you just feeling stuck and don't know why? Are you thinking or are you seeing? Seeing allows us to expand and have this other experience. We want to invite you for that wake-up call. We want to invite your spirit, your soul, so to be more alive, more connected. Glenn Brooks has been a life coach for over 33 years, author of Divorced to Patterns, Not Each Other, an explorer of what is possible. He has worked with people all around the world. Join us for a wake-up conversation, a dialogue with you. We will have some of the most interesting contributors. We will be talking to some of the most interesting people and have some of the most resourceful teachers, wisdom-filled people from around the world join us. Share your voice, ask the questions, become free of the known into a new world of possibility. We are going to talk about all the things you wonder about: how to live, how to heal, how to connect, how to love, how to be seen. Your life is precious. Enjoy it.
Thank you. It's wonderful being with you. I'm Glenn Brooks for the Vibrant Living Network. And I want to ask you a question. I want to start with a question. And I guess the question is, John, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. John Adago's in the room, Hillary, and some people know and recognize Hillary as Hillary Lake of God. She has a spiritual aura. I used aura this morning, Hillary. And we
as
have
do everyone else.
yes, and then and then Nate Hughes. He is back from South America. So I want to deeply welcome you back. I missed you in South America.
It's been a long time, and it's nice being back.
Yeah, it's great having you back. I want to so I'll start off with Nate, because Hillary's name is so powerful. We'll go right to Nate to have integrate. What Hillary said about her name was also very powerful. So immediately deferring to other people's divinity. How like you, Hillary. Okay, Nate Hughes, a program designer for retreat centers. He owns his own company with medicinal raw honey and chocolate, the food of the gods, according to some. I'm an appreciator because the cacao certainly been, one of the things I know about food is it alters our brain and our mood. So I wanted to start off I want to invite Mr. John Adago. He's the author of many books, including East Meets West. And early on, John became very interested in the awake life, the life beyond being asleep. And being a businessman, John became very interested in this other listening. And I wanted to say, we named this series Meeting the Remarkable. Meeting the Remarkable. So I was just thinking about my experience, and I thought we could go on there and we could welcome John, we could go to Hillary and Nate. And so in my own ways, I would be around people and environments, and this became a way of life where there was something about these people that they expressed something beyond their outer mind, beyond the ordinary. There was something about them, whether they were and something about them, they were pleasant people. They were people who moved differently in some cases. They had a certain amount of grace. They had there was something about them that felt different being in a room with them, sitting across from them, interacting with them. There was a sense of something bigger, something truly remarkable. And when I had talked with Lisa, my producer, who's not with us yet, we had talked about this quality of remarkableness. And I really began, I guess you could say, meeting with people and exploring with people this different conversation, this different awareness, and became very interested in it. And it could be, as an example, once in my life, I was on the way to interview as a tennis pro in Atlanta. The van flew off the road, and we were down a little bit of a gully, and someone opened the door of the car, and he placed his hand on me and my shoulder, and I felt a quality of remarkable presence. And I felt remarkable presence was there, and when it was felt, it changed everything. It changed the spirit of people. It made people have this quality of presentness. and it's been a guiding light. It's been physical, and so I thought we could kind of go around. I'll start with, and then we're going to introduce our main. I guess this is I see this as a luncheon series with John Adago, who's been living this way, and he'll tell us a story how he began, and he'll share some personal things in relationship to our body. I didn't realize how much the body has this ability to carry this remarkableness. I've had this conversation with surgeons. I've had this conversation with, artists. I've had this conversation with dancers. Like, what is it? And one of the dancers, she was actually 96. Her name is Dao. Ms. Dao, T-A-O. She's a yoga teacher. She's a world-renowned tango dancer. She started an international winery. She's very into wines. And I was sitting with her, and she was telling me about how she could smell and sense a person's energy. So we were just sitting there. She said that anytime someone has an energy and they're injured, as an example, there's like a Geiger counter that goes off in her ears. And as she was scanning my bone on my arm, I had hurt my elbow, and the Geiger counter went off, and I could audibly hear it. And so I remember sitting with her at Kripalu, this international yoga center, and just feeling like, wow, so the opportunity is to bring out this remarkableness and to cultivate it and break from the chains of terminal normality. So, Nate, I want to invite you in as we begin our luncheon series with John Adago, and I wanted you to share about this experience of the remarkable and how it's been in your life, how it happened in your life.
There's never really a starting point, is there? And I think that's
so
magnificent about our life, is that we can look back and we can have a certain vantage point from each time in our life where we felt like something remarkable has happened to us, but it's always been unfolding. And I just like to think of it from my recent vantage point of the last year, where I've had another remarkable shift in perspective. And that's kind of what they say about Zen mind, beginner mind, is we have to keep that perspective of always a beginner at this, because as soon as we think that we've had this remarkable awakening and that's where we're going to remain, that's when we start to lose it. And I kind of got stuck again not too long ago in my career and in my life, and that stuckness allowed me to kind of go back in and figure out what it was I needed to do. And through that was, a little bit of a retreat myself. And that's where I found myself creating this raw honey sweetened chocolate business. And the reason that came to me so profoundly is because it was new and it aligned with everything that had been coming to me at the moment. And throughout the year, that unfolded more and more and more. And towards the end of last year, I had met this guy who started Zorzal Cocoa, which is a cocoa farm down in the Dominican Republic. And it just so happened that he was in the Catskills the day that I was creating some batches of chocolate. And he said, hey, I'm actually in the area. And I said, oh, wow. And I was like, well, here's my address. You can stop by. And he texted me about 15 minutes later saying, we're here. And I didn't realize it, but he brought the whole cocoa farm to my house.
Seriously?
And it had been a long day, and I had been making chocolate all day, and all of them only spoke Spanish, and my Spanish is a little, it's manageable, but it was, I had enough to get by, and I was trying to explain very technical chocolate making terms to the farmers in Spanish. But long story short, they invited me down to the farm, and that's how I ended up in the Dominican Republic last month. And I spent about 3 weeks down there, and not only do they have an amazing cocoa farm with people that are truly passionate about everything that they do, from the head fermentationist who you can just feel his energy when he talks about the energy of the fermentation process, the color of the bean, to the flavor profiles you get at the different temperatures, to the different times that you have to ferment it, and he's continually learning, and to the head of the farm who gets the beans to the market, sets it up for export. They're just very hands-on, and they love showing you what they do, and they're more excited that people are interested in it than really any kind of money aspect. And all of the money from the farm goes back to support this reserve outside of San Francisco de Marclaris. And I spent a bunch of time out there. It was in the middle of nowhere. It's completely pristine and protected, and it was just this reaffirmation that I'm definitely doing what I'm supposed to with this chocolate business. And it ties into my retreat consulting world, because this product is meant for rejuvenating the spirit of food that we've lost, bringing back that component that food isn't just energy for us. There's a sacred component to it, and it can help us come back into ourselves and reground us and re-guide us into where we have to be in our lives. And that's exactly what cocoa has done for me, and that's why it's centered around that, and that's why I find it quite remarkable where I am and where I'm at and how I've got to where I am.
And I want to add that, thank you. I just want to say that meeting with you had a remarkable experience in my life. I felt this timeless connection with you in the sense of wonder. And every time we interacted, Nate, it was really, I just felt more joy and connection. I kind of felt like, this notion of an infinite mind that joins us and allows us to see beyond our individualistic sense, our outer mind, if you will. And so I felt that with you immediately, and it's an honor having you on. And I want to introduce you to, I jokingly call, but I feel a special, deep connection with Hillary, and I do call her Hillary Lake because it's an easy name to say. That's one. And then two, of God, it just flows, And so Hillary has been challenging me on the name in a beautiful way since I've given it to her through God recently. So here she is. She's fairly recently direct from Harvard. She's an official minister, if you could believe it, who's dancing and playing and an inquirer. And so the remarkable, what's the life? So as you listen to Nate, what moves you to talk about the remarkable? How do you hold it in your life, and what's your relationship been with the remarkable?
I'm really moved by your story, Nate, especially about the relationships that you were sharing, and the relationship to the people and the synchronicity, and also the relationship to the land, to the place where this cocoa comes from. And for me, that's how I've learned about spirit and about transformation on a deep level. And I just want to say a little bit about, I studied sustainable development in Thailand for a year, and when I was there, I learned how to learn from indigenous people and how their relationship to the land is so inherent in their being. And without that experience, I couldn't be who I am right now. I was so inspired. It blew my whole world open, and it had to do a lot with food as well. We were farming in a lot of these places, and so I have a sense of what you might have felt going to this land and building the relationship with the farmers, and how that it sounds like it did change your life. And I have a sense from my own experience, and I'm just looking forward to hearing more, and also tasting this cacao where there's so much intention put into its creation. And that's very rare, unfortunately, in the world of produced food. And so to be able to know about a company that does bring so much intention and care to what you're doing is a gift, is a real gift.
I appreciate that.
Mm.
Yeah, what is the company name?
So it's called Abejitas, which is Spanish for little bee. There's not quite a direct translation. There's kind of the connotation of a cute, playful pun on it, and that it was really my intention when I picked that word is just the idea that food's become so serious and commercialized, even with the food that we think is healthy. I just wanted to bring that healthy, spiritual, playful aspect back to it too, because oftentimes in spirituality there's so many layers, and I think I found myself at times getting too serious with my spiritual practice. So this whole idea that food can have a spiritual component and have this revitalizing component, but still we have to take it lightly and have fun with it at the same time.
All right, we're gonna take a brief pause, and we're gonna introduce Mr. John Adago, who's written several books and has traveled the world in quest of being awake. What did he learn? What did he discover? We'll hear some of his story. And by the way, I love, Hillary, how you share that it kind of both of you and Nate reminded me that food was a powerful doorway for me. I felt the wonder of food, particularly in the summer, and there was something about seeing farmers. I just want to say that you both, the sacredness of food and the beyond just a physical nutrition, how it actually feeds us, and the connection we have to the earth is sort of wondrous. So I'm really appreciating both of your recognition of the remarkable in food, in land. We'll continue with Vibrant Living and the remarkable and you and Mr. John Adago in a moment.
The Real Conscious Connection. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM. Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
Hello, I'm Sandy Sedgbeer, host of OMTimes Magazine's flagship radio show, What is Going On? My passion is sifting through information, research, and innovations from new thought teachers, speakers, and researchers pushing back the boundaries of what we know about life, energy, metaphysics, and the universe. I love shifting perceptions about who we are, why we're here, and how quickly impossible becomes normal when we open our minds, expand our awareness, and accept that the only limits that exist are those we place upon ourselves. So if you're the kind of forward-thinking, eager investigator of what lies beyond the current reality that most perceive, why not make a date to come play with me in the field of possibilities at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time every Thursday, and together we can discover what's really going on.
Hi, this is recording artist and composer Yuval Ran, inviting you to a voyage through the chakras, a new double album of guided meditations to transform your life, a sublime musical medicine for nourishing inner peace and reaching to your higher virtues. Get it now at metamindfulnessmusic.com, METTA mindfulnessmusic.com.
In the wake of a disaster, what one thing can you send that will help people the most? A blanket, a tent, a sandbag, a doctor. Actually, if you send a monetary donation, you send all these things. Even a small donation can make a big impact and can quickly become exactly what people affected by disaster need most.
In the wake of a hurricane, your monetary donation can make a huge difference to those in need. To donate, visit supporthurricanerelief.org. That's supporthurricanerelief.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Welcome. I love sharing these remarkable moments with you guys deeply. I'm Glenn Brooks, Vibrant Living Network. So happy. Nate Hughes is back from formerly of Menla, now the world, and Sacred Chocolate. Just had a remarkable meeting with Hillary. We'll just call her Hillary, but you guys know that she's Hillary of God. So I want to introduce you guys to John Adago, author of several books, been on the awakened path. Have definitely a strong business background, but clearly John's heart and soul. He shares his journey in his books. I have East Meets West in my hand. So, John, first of all, welcome.
Welcome. Oh, thank you.
I just wanted to get your comments on anything that struck a chord in you, or because obviously this has been such a big part of your life, these remarkable moments, finding out the teachers in the world that you felt were transmitters, so the people that you felt were conduits of this remarkableness, and how it sort of would remove the veil, because a lot of us, the illusion of the veil of the world for many people has been a disruption. At the same time, people have gotten lost or distracted by spiritual paths. So how did this remarkable moment enter your life, or how did you enter the remarkable moment to begin this journey and began your authorship on awakeness and remarkableness? And I'm happy you're meeting Hillary and Nate. Both, I think, share this quest and life experience of the remarkable with you.
Well, I'm struck by the word remarkable because one of the primary influences on my spiritual quest was Gurdjieff. And Gurdjieff wrote a book called Meetings with Remarkable Men. And what he wrote about that was remarkable about these men and women were that the aim and purpose of their life was to seek out higher knowledge that would help them realize the full potential of a human being. They sensed that the condition that they found themselves in was far less than what they hoped it could be. And they sought to refine the quality of their attention, expand their awareness. They sought out men and women and teachers, brotherhoods that explored the metaphysical or the inner world with practical applications. That is, how is it that I get to a higher place of being from the very ordinary condition that I find myself in today?
And how would you describe that? How would you describe the ordinary condition?
Was that question directed to me or to Richard?
No. It's Nate and Hillary, and they have their own buzzers, so they could buzz in at any moment. But
okay.
And I know they're very excited about those buzzers. They're wood carved and hold energetic value for both of them. No, just for you, John. For you. Thank you, Hillary.
Sure. So
I always appreciated the laughter before I was asked to leave a classroom, by the way. It was a lonely journey, but I felt my awakening started leaving classrooms in quest of something very different than a classroom. So when you talked about the ordinary condition, how did it strike you personally? Was it? Did you sense there was something?
Well, I remember when I came out of college and I was on my own, really, perhaps for the first time in my life. The condition was unsatisfactory. There was a vague uneasiness, a sense that at times I couldn't get out of my own way, that there were a lot of desires and pursuits, and they weren't necessarily leading me to a sense of satisfaction or fulfillment. So I began to seek out something that I thought perhaps I didn't know. I really didn't know where to look, but when I encountered the writings of Gurdjieff and Ouspensky, they began to give me a very important first step, because they said this human condition that we find ourselves in is far short of our potential. We consider ourselves fairly competent men and women, but we also notice that we frequently make a wrong turn or dial the wrong number, or speak and act in ways that miss opportunities and are often inappropriate to the situations. I get up in the morning and I might have trouble finding my keys or my wallet or my pen. And I'm embarrassed by these moments because I know that I'm capable of something more. And when you encounter the writings of, as I said, Gurdjieff and Ouspensky initially, and then others, what they said is that this is a human condition, and it's not a condition that's optimal, that we can learn to refine the quality of our attention, expand the awareness, reach a certain point of unity within ourselves so that we're not being pushed and pulled by conflicting desires all day long. They call this the work. Work is defined in physics as force against resistance. The force is the power of your will or your desire to change. And the resistance are your habits and your tendencies and your desires, which tend to not necessarily lead to happiness and fulfillment.
And that's an interesting prospect because the mind can be so very tricky, and sometimes we can think we're doing it and we're reaching our ultimate potential. Perhaps we're working at a job. I can reflect on my time working at a spiritual center and thinking that I was absolutely reaching my full potential and doing everything that I can, but we become complacent, and we have to always keep that in mind that as soon as that complacency sets in, we're probably not at the best of our potential. And how do we do that? And that's the question that we have to keep asking ourselves, because mindfulness alone probably isn't enough. I think it's ultimately the two levels of work that we talk about. Work is ordinary work, and then the work you're talking about, the spiritual thing that has to be done, the force we have to, that tremendous force we have to put forward to reach that potential you're talking about. And I think sometimes that has to be some kind of energetic connection that pulls us back in, because as we sit behind desks and we sit behind computers, that's a very easy way to become complacent and not reach our best potential, to form habit patterns that pull us out of that awareness. And I think when we can work more using our hands and being out in the earth, that's a tremendous potential to sometimes be more in touch.
And working with people and connecting through our bodies as well. I've found that I'm able to stay more present with my own experience when I'm working around other people as well. And that's not always a positive, or, sometimes it's challenging. There's challenging things that come up. And if we can learn some tools to be able to stay grounded and centered, as you're talking about kind of the energetic experience, Nate, that's what I've been thinking about, that this takes practice to learn and to know where our own edge is as well, so that we can be in healthy, authentic relationships with others and use the support of the earth for this process of awakening and staying grounded by connecting with it. Maybe that means gardening, maybe that means doing some sort of offerings on a daily basis. Maybe that means, throwing a snowball in the winter, wherever we are. There's different ways of doing that at different times, and bringing some of that lightness in and expansion that often in normal work contexts isn't a part necessarily of what's happening. So I'm curious about what it is to bring that remarkable in through play and through movement and through sounding and singing in all sorts of different contexts, to help people get beyond the ordinary ways of being that we've been taught to do in school, really.
Yeah, I love the spirit of both Nate and Hilly's, experience, that a lot of times the habitualness of life even people who consider themselves on a spiritual path, it becomes another belief system, another disease, being that, right? So, yeah, I was curious too. That Gurdjieff seemed to have this. By the way, his life and kind of how he lived, really, maybe this is a strong word, John. Maybe you would help me on this. He seemed to have this interest of, I don't know if shattering is the right word, but disrupting or having people come out of this identity of just being their job or being their prestige or being their work. And he seemed to want to disrupt that. And he was sort of a character. He, last week Lisa was talking about their Gurdjieff in the late 1800s already came up with a photograph, some kind of sound system where he would want people to listen to sounds and do like he had an awareness of the impact of music and movement. How do you see, based on what Hillary and Nate said about breaking this sleep, that, people, they go to school, they do this, they do that, and yes, they're tremendously asleep, and they know it. A lot of people have the sense that there's sleepness. I couldn't quite name it, but I found a lot of unpleasant people doing their jobs, and I thought it seemed really bizarre. I think the first time I met someone that was truly pleasant was probably sixth grade. Up until then, it was kind of like I couldn't explain it. It seemed these people I just couldn't get humanness. So I'm just curious how, for you, John, what would you comment? What's your response to breaking the sleepiness? And I love the idea of food and the body as a pathway to that, because I know when I went to Jim put me to sleep to my body, and the classroom certainly put me to sleep, to being really curious about the vehicle of the mind. I didn't realize how the mind could come awake and experience remarkable mind.
Well, Gurdjieff was a profound and also very provocative teacher, an unconventional teacher. And one evening you might meet a profound philosopher who's giving a clear elucidation about the laws and principles that governed our lives and the creation. But on another night you might meet someone who confronted the student, really shook his psychological foundations, attempts to break through his preconceptions and his habitual ideas and tendencies. Gurdjieff taught that men and women live a life that he called sleep, which was far beneath their potential. And he taught specific methods on how to begin to reach a deeper, more profound place within yourself. And both of your other guests referred to aspects of that. Certainly we need to, if this is going to become the aim and purpose of our life, we need to actually cultivate a little bit of quiet time in each day, a time for a meditation or study or reflection on one's life. And just doing that 15 minutes or half an hour a day puts us in touch with our creative power, with the stillness of ourself. Then when we go out and we meet the activities of the day, there need to be moments during that day when we kind of let go of the desire at play in the moment and just kind of connect to what's going on around us, that we just see what's happening around us, that we actually listen deeply to the people who are speaking or the sounds around us, that we feel the play of air on our face, that we connect through the senses to the present moment. And in those moments we feel more alive. We're liberated from the constant flow of thoughts and feelings that seem to be going on incessantly and mindlessly within ourselves. We come to ourselves. We come out. This is what Gurdjieff and Ouspensky spoke of as awakening. Ouspensky wrote a book called In Search of the Miraculous, and what he meant by the miraculous was a penetration beneath the thin veneer of consciousness in which we live most of our day to a deeper, more profound sense of oneself.
Powerful name.
Mm-hmm. I do appreciate you mentioning the practice of contemplation and meditation and the essential nature of that for awakening. really do agree with that, and I think it can happen in one's morning routine. It can happen taking a walk and being outside and learning from the teachings of nature at times, and I think it can happen sitting in meditation whenever and wherever we are, if we need to take that moment to go back to the silence and the stillness within, and be open to what will come out of that place as well.
Hillary and Nate, and John, I was in the Catskills. And Nate has quite a reputation as the king of consciousness of the Catskills. He's from the Catskills. I just gave him a little bit of a nickname, and I'm so happy he's back. I've missed you so much. So I was up at Paulsburg to go see, I think, actually Swami Muktananda was still there. And Swami Muktananda, said that there was something bigger than our mind, and that the true self sees the mind but is not the mind. He said a few things I thought was sort of strong. And I went there, and the thing, it's so funny, is the three of you were speaking and sharing about the remarkable. There was a sign, and there was thousands of people there, and the simple sign in the hallway said, "See God in each other." See God in each other. And I felt like, wow, that is a pretty powerful universal recognition that gets confused by religion and belief systems, and so that was that was a striking experience when people, I think, realize that they have this sort of divine recognition or divine aspect. And looks like we're going to take a brief pause. We'll continue with John Adago, Hillary Lake. I didn't say it, did I? And now the king of consciousness of the Catskills, Nate Hughes, who's so welcome back. And you guys, talking to John Adago this day about his experience and wonder of awakened teachings.
Feed your soul with waves of consciousness on OMTimes Radio.
Ascending Hearts is no ordinary dating site, but a spiritual dating site with a purpose, to link you with your soulmate. We engineer the serendipity so you can trust that you will attune with someone that has the same matching vibration as you. Ascending Hearts, the conscious dating site for the spiritually aware. Try Ascending Hearts for free. AscendingHearts.com.
More than 24 million Americans have an autoimmune disorder, and that number continues to grow. I'm Sharon Saylor, and I'm one of those 24 million. To put that number in perspective, cancer affects about 9 million and heart disease up to 22 million. That's why I've brought together top experts and those thriving regardless of their diagnosis to bring you the latest, most up-to-date information. Join me, Sharon Saylor, Friday night, 7 p.m. Eastern, for the Autoimmune Hour on Life Interrupted Radio to find out how to live your life uninterrupted.
Hi, this is New Age Grammy winner Paul Avgerinos. Thanks for listening to OMTimes Radio, and please support my peaceful healing music with a purchase at iTunes, Amazon, or wherever you shop for fine music. Just put my name into the search engine, Paul Avgerinos. A, V like Victor, G like George, E-R-I-N-O-S. You can also visit me at roundskymusic.com. Thanks for listening, and I'm wishing you the brightest of blessings.
Melissa from Michigan. I work an extra part-time job serving lunch at my child's school, but I still can't afford to put food on our table.
Daniel from California. Choosing whether to pay the rent or pay to fix the car to get to work doesn't leave us with much at all. Now we can't even pay for meals.
Hunger is a story we can end. End it at feedingamerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Paul Avgerinos. I keep thinking, you're welcome to Vibrant Living Network. I'm Glenn Brooks. We're talking about this series, our series on the remarkable. John Adago has written several books on how to connect and awaken to the remarkable. Paul Avgerinos him. I think he has the most mellow voice on the planet. I was wondering if he used that voice that he used for his New Age music in other areas of his life. For instance, playing Oliver Twist, for instance, like him using that voice, asking for more food. We need to get Paul on to ask him about how his voice has changed his life. Hillary, I was expecting a big laugh from you. We're talking also with Hillary Lake. Thank you. Please, I want to encourage it. Please be disruptive.
Okay.
And Nate Hughes, please be disruptive as well. John, please trust whatever you feel to be appropriate on this format. I don't know what it was, John and Hillary and Nate, but I experienced a life-disrupting panic attack. And matter of fact, the language of panic wasn't really around, and it was something that I felt like something was happening, and I didn't know what it was. I didn't quite know what to do with it. I just felt like I'd taken on a lot of things had changed in my life, and my son was born, who was the most profound moment was my son was born. Birth, to me, had every dimension of awakeness and wonder and the mystery of life, and yet I was absolutely fascinated by it. I was also fascinated by gentle birth. I was fascinated by underwater birth. There was something there in it. And during this time, when my son was young, I had these experiences that would really scare me in a way where I just didn't know if my feet would meet the earth again. And I spoke with a man who had went to a Gurdjieff school. He went to a school, a private school that would teach people these practical inner harmony exercises. And I remember he told me that he had a panic attack when he was in school, maybe maybe when he was 15 or 16. And when the headmaster came back, what he said to him was that this was one of the greatest opportunities of his life and to welcome this in his life. And so he was saying that this sort of changed the flavor and the tone of him having what he would call disturbing and disruptive experiences, because we're all singing the song of no matter how much disturbance we have going on, we're supposed to keep on and being normal. And so I realized that was very impactful to me, that to be able to hold things in a different light, to be able to see things different and have the, courage and also to be able to share that and acknowledge, that this is part of our experience that's unexplainable. And usually how a lot of us deal with that is we go shopping or go to see therapists, but it wasn't. I think what I appreciated about Gurdjieff, John and Hillary and Nate, was that Gurdjieff sort of had this, I guess he seemed to bring spirituality into our lives through dance, through questioning our thinking, it seemed like he had this, I don't know, every time you write about him, John, I always get a sense that he was sort of wondrous to be around. He seems like such a character. Could you give us a flavor of what it might? I mean, you have so many people that have been close to Gurdjieff. What is it like to be in a room with him? How you described it in different ways to me, and it's always intrigued me deeply.
Well, he died in 1949, so I didn't know him personally. Though
yeah.
I've read everything that he's written and been involved in Gurdjieff groups for many years. There's one story that says a lot. It was the doctor that attended him in the last day of his life wrote the story in a book, and what he writes of was that he left the room where Gurdjieff was in bed and went into an adjoining room where there were anxious people around and announced that the end was near, that every system had failed and Gurdjieff would not leave his bed again. And a few minutes later, the door opened and Gurdjieff, with great effort, moved his body across the room to the bathroom, and then a few minutes later returned unassisted to his bed. And the doctor said it appeared as if he had picked up his failed body by the scruff of the neck and directed it to walk. This was the teacher's final lesson. It's not the body that sets the limits of the man, it's his will. And by this last act of his last lesson, he conveyed this to his students. And he manifested this almost superhuman will that manifested all his life. It was the same will that directed the men that he wrote about in Meetings with Remarkable Men, where these people put this pursuit of the knowledge that would help them reach the full potential of their life. They gave this the highest priority in their life. What Gurdjieff said was that, and Ouspensky and other teachers, is that this spiritual evolution does not come about automatically or come about as a result of pursuing career or even family or your responsibilities to the community, that a special knowledge and special efforts were required if one was to raise the level of one's own awareness and consciousness.
John, why don't you go out and give the contact information for the publisher, how people could pick up your books and be in touch and order your books if they're moved?
Sure. There are two books, East Meets West, which is a story of the teachers that introduced meditation and Indian philosophy to Europe and America. And the second book, Ancient Wisdom Can Enrich Your Life Today, which is a series of essays and that incorporate these stories and quotes from these master teachers. Both of these books are available on Amazon, or they can be reached, and I can be reached through my website, which is thejourneyback.net. Thejourneyback.net is my website. So that's the contact information.
All right, we're going to, since Nate Hughes has had most of the awakening experience in the Catskill area, let's pass the baton to Nate for a comment or a crazy story, whatever it is, Nate, that moves you. What's moving you about Gurdjieff and his teachings this morning, or anything related to waking up?
Well, it's interesting how everything seems to fall into place. Perhaps we create synchronicities by looking for them, or perhaps synchronicities are always there. Just a matter of how we look at it. But I've really seen these things happen more and more lately, and the more I give myself space to reassess my life and come back in touch with what I'm doing, I find that I'm able to really dial into what it is I need to be doing and the real ways I need to be challenging myself. And I think that goes hand in hand with what we've been talking about on the show. And when we are in those times of contemplation, and when we finally stop past even that contemplation, the answers kind of appear to us, and that's where I've been at. And just talking about it here today is reaffirming to me, and I think that's why I was off the show for about a month or so, and I came back on the show today. That seemed quite fitting that this is a show that I came back on to, because all of this is kind of cyclical, and it ties back into what I've been doing and where I'm going, meaning that everything feels correct and right. And from my solitude out in the Catskills, I say that that's where we go from here.
And there's no fine for leaving. We dropped the fine. I checked with Hillary this morning. There's no fine. We just want to welcome you back fully.
Mm-hmm. Good to hear you.
So thank you. Thank you. And Hillary's very tough on fines, by the way. It wasn't easy, but she said done.
Yeah. Maybe only a fine and how many more times I have to keep coming on.
Good. Yes. Yeah. So Hillary, what bubbles when you hear about Gurdjieff and I don't know what bubbles when John talks about Gurdjieff and Ouspensky, and I don't know what kind of bubbles to you. What's bubbling for you?
Well, I love the description of Gurdjieff's will at the end of his life, and I can't relate to being at the end of my life at this point, but I can relate to feeling completely confused and overwhelmed, and maybe it's a panic attack, maybe it was like a psychotic break, but I've had some really huge spiritual experiences that were actually quite scary, energetic experiences that changed my experience of my body and of energy and relationships completely, and a number of these happened either right before or while I was in divinity school, and I had an attachment to an identity as being a really good student and being just successful in a lot of things that I did. And here I am, at Harvard and thinking I need to be as good as everyone else or doing what everyone else is doing or whatever that was, all these ideas and attachments. And really what I could get myself to do well was to dance and do yoga and to move a lot of energy because I felt all this intensity in my body. And so, I couldn't really sit and read or write very well. And so I couldn't think and be in the way that I had been that got me to this place, and felt like a total imposter and like I didn't belong at all. And somehow I just made it work. It was like a sheer act of will to stay, I think, in that context and to ask the divine to support me. Maybe I was channeling my papers. It felt like that sometimes, or to read just enough to be able to glean what this author was saying, or to really feel into the energetic of what this author was offering, and to even meditate into that or contemplate that for my own experience too. And so for me, learning became about experience and not so much about reading or listening or writing as much. And it was about building connections with people, real people, even if I wasn't with them. So I think I can feel that in what you're bringing through, John, and about Gurdjieff. And I don't have much context. I've heard about him, of course, in some of my studies, but it just helps me to understand. It seems like he was bringing this experiential way of being through, and it took probably a lot of will at that time, and I think now there's more. It's kind of like the 100th monkey. Like there's more of us waking up, so maybe there's less will, in a sense, needed, and now it's more of a surrendering or opening or allowing, in a way that I feel it and experience it as more of this yin way of being, or some people can say feminine. I don't necessarily break it down like that, but I'm curious how this way of awakening is shifting through the different eras and times, and what's needed at different times too. So it brought up a lot for me, obviously.
Wow, that was great. I on the next format, we'll do the next format this coming Thursday, and we'll talk about. I want to talk about dealing with crisis, and also to get your take on what Hillary just mentioned, how the anthropology of awakening and how it's changed, and what your take is, maybe unique and distinct to these times with so much happening, so much challenge. So, John, once again, why don't you give out your contact, and if you want to leave a brief comment, we have about a minute to go. If you wanted to, both Hillary and Nate, I think, added another beautiful part of the dialogue.
Yes, and this she spoke about surrendering and opening. And this has always been an aspect of the work. One has to, let go of the ego, let go of this preoccupation with the melodrama we call my everyday life, and replace it with this sense of being, of looking to serve thy will as opposed to my will. This has always been an aspect of the spiritual work, and it's good to hear her speak about it and remind us of that. The contact, the two books that I wrote are Ancient Wisdom Can Enrich Your Life Today and East Meets West. Both are available on Amazon, and I can be reached, and the books can be contacted through my website, which is thejourneyback.net. thejourneyback.net.
John, 30 seconds on dealing with crisis, or the crisis of consciousness that comes with inquiry.
It begins with coming to yourself, coming to a still point within yourself. You have to stop from time to time during the day or during the life and just touch the stillness. From that stillness, I can open up and connect through my senses to what's actually going on around me. Not the fears and worries and concerns about it, but actually connecting with the present moment right now.
Well, and John, why don't you, how do you spell Adago? People want to look up John Adago. How do you spell your
Adago? It's John Adago, Adago.
And Awakening in the Catskills is Nate's forthcoming book, which he hasn't written or thought about yet, but there's a good possibility he'll write it after today's program, I would imagine. The Catskills is, I don't know. I want to say growing up, I grew up thinking there was something unique or sacred. Was there a place, John or Hillary, that, was there a place? Oh, I forgot about the old time clock. I was enjoying our lunch so much. I want to thank John Adago and, of course, Hillary Lake of the Infinite Sky, and Nate today. Thank you. Blessings. Appreciate you guys deeply. Your life's precious. Enjoy it. I'm Glenn Brooks for the Vibrant Living Network.